So we're here at Clockworks in San Jose, California, and we're actually sitting with Anthony here. We're going to talk to him. He's with Tinplate. He has some very unusual artwork. So Anthony, tell us a little bit about your inspiration on your art.
Oh, a lot of my inspiration comes from the early collections of the 17th and 18th century, or 19th century, I guess I should say. The Wunderkammers, which were later to become museums. But these were private collections where people would gather stuff from all over the world and put them in aesthetically pleasing tableaus. Everything from odd animals to native artifacts. And with mine, oftentimes what I do is I'll basically create my own animals. I'll take cues from nature and bend it. I also do ray guns, and most of my inspirations are from, I'd say, pulp movies and pulp novels from the 1930s, and with a steampunk twist. So I use a lot of brass and a lot of wood, and I make weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Could you show us a couple of the items that we're looking at here on the tables? Maybe you have a favorite you'd like to share?
Okay. This one is basically a large repurposed ray gun. It's a Vickers voltaic pistol, and as you can see, it is a bunch of repurposed items. Oftentimes, what I'll do is I'll scout the Goodwill stores and other thrift stores and find interesting shapes. And I try to look for stuff which is, either brush steel or brass. And that gives it a little more of a vintage look. And I'll take the items, which might be candlesticks or creamers or what have you, or napkin rings, and I'll cut them up and I'll sort them. And my studio is basically filled with bins of similar shapes, and I mix and match. I mean, it's like doing Legos.
Thank you. And could you show us some of your oddities, please?
Sure. Over here is the garden demon, and I based that on some of the imps from sort of European mythology and such, and it looks a little like, and morphologically like, a bat, but when you get up close, it's got more of a human rib cage and a definitely more humanoid head. And what it's made out of is, well, people ask me what it's made out of, and oftentimes I just say demon meat, but what it's actually made out of is wire, super sculpey, and mulberry paper. I do a mulberry paper overlay to get the skin and the membranes, and it's a really sheer Japanese paper which looks like rotting flesh.
It's brilliant. Could you tell me a little bit about your mummified fairy right down here?
Oh, the fée mummifiée, that's the French term for it, is the same technique, but the wings are actually made out of preserved autumn leaves, and that makes them flexible and easier to work with. The skin, the hair, everything, that's all mulberry paper. The hair I just tease out to make much less solid, because when you do the paper mache on the skin, it comes out with almost smooth sheen. That I just leave dry, and I'll tease out with a stick or something to make it fly in the wind. Right. Probably this is the anatomical preparation of a Nosferatu head. And Nosferatu is sort of a vampire, or an unclean soul in Romanian. I think they're called Necratu originally. There was a film in the 1920s called Nosferatu by Klaus Murnau, and it featured Max Schreck as this vampire, and this is sort of an homage to him. But it's also an homage to anatomical artists and people who preserve bodies for study. And so oftentimes what they do is they take a cadaver skull and cut it in half and reveal the brain and the internal structures. So what I've done with this is I've only done half of the exterior head, and the interior you can see half of the brain and all the other stuff inside.
Right, so you have some interesting items here for tea parties. Perhaps you'd like to show us one of your tea party items.
Sure. This is what's known as a travesty in a teacup. And it looks like a normal cup of tea, but however, there's this horrible human slash cephalopod thing dwelling in it. And some of the comments that I've gotten, one of the ones that I really remember is that, what a waste of a good cup of Earl Grey. That thing's got to be filthy. But generally, I'd been putting these things in jars, and my wife said, why don't you try a teacup? And I was like, oh, okay. And it ended up being really disturbing and kind of cool.
So lastly, tell us where people wanted to get a hold of you or find your art. Where could they find you?
You'll find me on Etsy. It'll be tinplatestudios.etsy.com. Thank you.